All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to my power ranking series. I'm very excited for this one. This is my number 26 team. We're going to be looking at the Minnesota Vikings. Let's get to it. Okay, offensive line and the quarterback situation. Very interesting here. So O-line has not changed much, and I honestly am completely okay with it. All these guys fit this scheme. It's a very good young developing group. If we are talking about kind of a note of a guy who was pushed down a little, Davis is now in that backup position. I thought he was more of a power scheme kind of mauler type, anyways. So they drafted Ingram to take that spot. I think that's completely fine. Ingram's pretty talented as a player. He's got a stout lower frame. He moves and matches pretty well as a guard. They took him a little earlier than I had him, but I'm being pretty ticky tack at that point. He's a decent prospect. I had him and Wyatt similarly rated, so I wouldn't be surprised if Wyatt does fend him off, but I'm not expecting it to happen. The only other name I'll talk about is O'Neal. He's kind of the big name here. They gave him the big contract to stay for the long haul. The rest of the guys are on cheaper or rookie deals, but beneficial to keep this group together. I think it was good of the Vikings to go hire a crew that fits this offensive scheme already, that they already had in place. So that way they kept this very talented group of O linemen together. I thought that was a very smart choice by the Vikings. All right, now quarterback situation. It's at least very solid, but the Vikings are paying a lot for it. We're talking 32 mil this year, 36 mil the next season. And an almost combined 20 mil in cap hit for spread out over 2 more years on top of that if Kirk doesn't re-sign. Even then, it's just that money just gets piled onto his new contract. So it's a huge overpay for what the Vikings are getting. But the Vikings really don't want to be in a market for a quarterback, especially they really don't seem to be liking their backup options. I didn't even bother putting Mond on here because they seem so disinterested in him coming last season. It is a new coaching crew, so maybe Mond finally gets a look this year. But I thought Mond looked pretty stiff as a quarterback, which with this scheme that they're about to implement, it really requires you to be able to move smoothly in motion. So we'll see what comes of that. I think Kirk can manage an offense pretty well, and he conducts it well as well. But I mean, man, he's better than a lot of other quarterbacks in this league, but that contract it is holding the Vikings back because it hurts their team building ability and their ability to pay for other things with just how much they're having to pay Kirk. You know, paying Kirk 32 mil and 36 mil, if that's actually what his contract was, that's actually much more manageable. But the fact that you got to add on another 20 mil in cap past that they had to push off because if you actually didn't, it's more talking like its thing is 45 and 47 is something like that. What the actual contract numbers would have been if it was all 1 year. Like it's those are not good numbers to look at. So we'll see what the Vikings come of it. They've got a big choice to deal with that. We do have a notable fullback here in CJ Ham. He's been incredibly solid for the last few years. He's a staple of this offense. He fits this scheme well, so another great thing they're able to get a coaching staff that fits what he's done. I fully expect him to be a participant again this season. All right, backfield receivers. It's a good group here. Big name here in KJ Osborne. He really showed up big last year. I like him carrying that momentum in this season. He's a very utterly solid player. He doesn't really overly excel in any aspect of his role, but he's not poor at all in any part of his role either. So I think he'll be a very stable piece on this offense. Some of the depth here too. I didn't mention most of them because it is really the difference between most of them is very minimal. But I think there's some decent depth here that can fill a couple roles in case of injuries. Smith Jr., very athletic tight end. This team's hoping that this is the year it all gets put together. He's been a decent player for them already, but I think they were hoping when they drafted him that it would be more of a great player than a decent player. So this is the year that he's going to take that step if he's ever going to take it. So all eyes on him for this season. Adam Thielen, father time's kind of caught up to him. The injuries are starting to pile up. He's starting to slow down very evidently, but he's still a very serviceable player. I'd actually like to see him take more snaps in the slot this year. He still has the ability to, I mean, not just run the routes, but he runs them very well. Like his routes themselves create separation. So I would really like to push him in the slot where he'll be lining up against safeties, slot corners, and linebackers most of the time. So do keep an eye on the Vikings to maybe think of playing him a little bit more there in some traditional pass sets. So I like that as well. Before we get to the big boys, I do want to talk about a backup player. This one actually I think is worth really noting. In Madison, backup running back, he's been an extremely underrated back in this league, and he's been very nice for the Vikings, especially for when they haven't had Cook. Madison is kind of able to emulate what Cook does for that offense without missing much of a beat. He's a pretty well-rounded player. I imagine that someone's going to pay him when his contract runs up here. I don't think it would be the Vikings. I think they'll probably let him go with how their cap situation's looking. For now, he's an excellent backup. He's a really nice relief back for Cook, and he gives Chandler, who you drafted, I believe, in the fifth round, gives him some time to get ready as well. All right, now let's talk about the big boy running back, Dalvin Cook. Still the lead back here, very shifty and explosive when hitting these holes in these inside zone schemes between the linemen. He's got that breakaway speed to pair with it too, and he's still one of the top backs in the league. Really nothing else to talk about other than that. He's as long as he's available, you'll get production. Justin Jefferson, here's the other big name. He's going to his third year now, and he's already more than proved that he can be the guy here. He's an excellent number one receiver. I love his ability to separate through his routes, very much like Thielen. And he has a full route tree already in this third year. How the Vikings were able to get him in his draft with relative ease is pretty impressive. It does make me wonder if stuff like that also played in a factor in why so many teams were really trying to trade up this last season, because it was another good crop of top end talents, and they were all super aggressive in trading up for a wide receiver. I don't think they wanted to let a guy like Jefferson slip to a playoff contending team like it happened that year. So just something to think about. I do wonder if that could have, in particularly, fed into that idea of these teams trading so heavily up. Okay, defensive front seven. We have some players here that are on the downswing of their career, so let's talk about them first. Zadarius Smith was just signed to help bolster this D-line group. He's very familiar with his coaching scheme and some of the coaches. So even with his old age and coming off injuries that have been dragging him down, I do expect very quality play. DJ Wanham is here as a kind of big body edge to take some pressure off if needed, which should help keep him on the field a little longer this year. Jordan Hicks, he's also on the downswing of his career. He was a great player for the Eagles, decent player for the Cards. He filled the scheme fit. His coverage instincts are still there. He knows his role pretty well. Still a very mental player, but it's very clearly slowed down a little bit. He's not as explosive as he once was. That typically happens with age. So he should provide some stability and leadership to this defense. He does have Asamoah here, who was drafted. I think he's a notable rookie. He's a kind of an undersized guy who is going to be needing to kind of make his career in these passing downs, or he's going to have to add on a decent amount of weight. He's really just a rookie worth noting here, and I think even though they're switching to a 3-4 scheme, I think Asamoah could thrive here if he learns from the two veteran linebackers ahead of him. Okay. Dalvin Tomlinson and also Phillips, who they picked up in free agency. This should really help stop the run, and with Phillips, I do imagine gives them a little bit more than just pocket pushing that they already get from Tomlinson, which should be pretty nice. That's very two key parts of this 3-4 is to kind of get some interior pressure and scheme up these hybrid looks a lot more, or really getting those tackles to panic and freak out. I like it a lot. All right, two big players on defense here. One's been incredibly consistent. The other one hurt on and off again. That one being Hunter. He's had issues with injury lately. You hate to see it, honestly. He's a great player. You want to see him get back on the field. He is a freaky athlete. Like he can just kind of naturally do things that most edge players can't do or they wish they could do. So with him having that level of athleticism and instinct for the game, you'd be quite happy to see him return to form and play the whole season, get back to what he's doing. This is really what the Giants are hoping for with Thibodeau as they get Daniel Hunter without the injuries. Linebacker Eric Kendricks is a super solid run defender, but the best thing, part about him is elite pass coverage, and I mean elite. We're talking about matching well in coverage. He covers guys like a man zone. He makes sure that he is getting rid of these guys as well. You can see it on almost any given NFL Sunday. He covers players, not grass, and it is a great talent to have. He's been a leader of this defense, a very underrated signing by them when he did sign. Still a very underrated player in my opinion. No one really talks about him, but I think he's a very good player. Okay, defensive backs. You got a mix of old vets and youth here for the secondary. Harrison Smith has still been the leader of the secondary for years, ever since he was kind of drafted. And I imagine that he will continue to be one this season. Age has also slowed him down slightly, but he's still a very nice box safety that I think for at least the next little while still can do that dip hybrid look that they like him to play. I don't know if he'll be blitzing as heavily as he used to like to, but I do think he can still partake in what they use him for in the past. They are paying him nicely over the next few years to do so. So at the very least, you hope that he'll be able to mentor Sign now, who, as the Vikings are really hoping that this is now going to be their long-term safety option. They tried out multiple other guys with up and down success, but most of the time we're not able to re-sign them. Sign plays fast, and he does hit hard. You'll probably see tons of highlights of him slamming in the guys, but this was on my draft board of him. He is extremely reckless and unrefined. I actually worry about him possibly hurting himself with his play style. I don't want to mention almost Ryan Shazier like, but almost in that fashion. I I think with his reckless nature, he is looking to hurt either himself or someone else, and that comes with repercussions. So I think Smith has a decent amount of work to do to make him play more in structure and less recklessly, but you could get a good player out of him if he adjusts to the NFL. For cornerbacks, Pat Pete still leading the defense here after coming in last season. He's a smart player. He understands coverage assignments and multiple different types of coverage. That's what Zimmer liked about him when he brought him in. He'll get some solid level play. Shouldn't really give up anything too big. I think speed on some kind of these new Shanahan overs might be able to get him when he's in pure man. But I think otherwise it should be all right. They should be able to protect him pretty well if they're smart about it. They do still have Dantzler behind him, who is a talent worth noting. I just don't think he really fits the scheme they're running now. He struggles with speed, but he's got nice length. He projects better as a pure zone corner, and we're talking like the quarter defense or like a cover three defense. Very heavy where his speed is pretty protected and his length is more utilized. Maybe I mean you can't really call the Jets anymore, but maybe you can call the Niners and see if you can get a trade candidate there. I'd actually consider that for them if they could. Um, Chandon Sullivan was brought in here, and he's very familiar with his time in Green Bay with how this defense is run. They brought over a lot of guys to run that defense here, so he should at least participate in these defensive looks. I'm not expecting more than kind of low-level starter play, but if he takes the leap this year for the Vikings, that'd be very nice. He'd be very happy about that. They drafted two rookies looking to fill out that cornerback room in Booth and Evans. Let's get on to Evans first. Evans has length and athletics, but he's really not ready to go right now. He is a project for the future, does not know what he's doing. So stash him, develop him. Hopefully it works out. Nothing really more to say there. I can't really upgrade or downgrade this defensive rating for them on him. Booth is more interesting. He's also a great athlete, but he was very clearly more ready to play from his tape. And clearly the Vikings agree with me. They already have him listed as taking the starting job. Uh, Booth's injury clearly made a lot of teams uncomfortable to take him as he fell out of the first round. But if he does heal from that injury, they possibly got a first round great corner in the early second round. It's a risk, but I think it was a good risk for this team to take. All right, special teams here pretty average. You have some starter level play at kicker, and I do like Barry as a very solid vet at punter. It's not really overly poor, overly great, but it's pretty average. I don't think you can really complain about it. I like the coordinator. I do think some of the coaching selections here are also very smart, and I do like them as well. Credit to the Vikings on that front. The talent for this group is nice to have for the future. They get kind of to develop themselves as coordinators for this first year and really get used to how this team's been assembled, which I think should help project this team for the future as they do have talent. If they can fill in some things, they have enough talent to make contention either in the good or playoff push category in the future. Kevin O'Connell, I don't think that was a pretty bad hire either. He was the offensive coordinator for the Rams, just kind of coming off a Super Bowl win, but I do have some questions there. Like one should ask how much input he really had on this offense, as McVay really does most of the play calling and running of the offense for the Rams. So it's just kind of something to kind of keep in mind, especially if you see some growing pains here early on in the season as the Vikings kind of try to figure out who they are. That might be because we have some guys who are, the coaching staff is really also trying to figure out who they are. So just something to note. All right, another team down in the books. Overall, I like the coaching crew that was put here together. The hires were then supported with player acquisitions that fit their scheme. These players are either familiar with the coaches themselves or the coach's scheme. So I think that's great. It projects well for the future. There's a decent amount of what you could be calling injury-prone players that are taking significant starting reps on this defense. And their ability to make adjustments during the season for for now and for the future is really hurt by that limited cap space they have, and it does not clear up very much in the future either. They're really banking on the cap limit to be taking leaps and bounds in in what they can be paying. I think right now they're currently hoping for, like, I think it's a 20 to 25 mil jump is what I'm hoping. I've heard these teams are hoping for as the new TV deals are starting to settle in now. Starting to take place. So we'll see if they do get that. That helps out this team a lot. If they don't, it might be a little rough. Even if it does happen, players are going to be demanding more money, so it is going to be harder to even acquire more players. But something to note: there's going to be some hard choices that are probably going to have to be made here down the line if they kind of wish to get out of this purgatory of being good but not good enough as a team once everything comes together. So we'll see. It's going to be hard for the Vikings, but regardless of that, I think come next year they'll be significantly better than this. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope to see you for the next one. Later.